Hey everyone, so I promised to get a video up, so I guess I will discuss this fish thing that I have. So anybody who's close to me already knows that I have a fear of fish. And it's not the fear of fish period, it's a fear of fish around my feet. So I know if I go into the ocean and a shark decides to get me, that is not going to get my feet. No, it's not going to get my body, it is going to get my feet. I know for a fact that's exactly what will happen. And my wife is a fish person. She's an oceany person. All of her paintings, they are bright and oceany, and she loves sharks and all things fishy, eats seafood. I don't eat seafood, won't even touch it. I don't want to eat, crab legs and then get my leg eaten off, or my foot. So my wife likes to go on frequent trips to the ocean. And one of our favorite places to go to is over in Fort Bragg at McCarraker. So there's a whole bunch of whirlpools. I call them whirlpools because they're whirling into depths of the deep ocean for scary creatures that are going to get your feet. That's obviously what they should be called. They're called tide pools. But in my mind, they are whirlpools. So we made a trip to McCarraker. And for some reason, I decided to wear flip-flops. And so my wife is always bringing me out into like oceany things, so I get a little bit more used to them. I'm a lot better now since I've been with her, actually. So we go to the McCarraker, and it was low tide, so there were all these tide pools. And there was a big one that we were looking into, and then, my wife was like, oh, that right there is like a sea slug, and look at that's a little rockfish, and over here's, look at this little, there's a little tiny baby jelly in there, so she's pointing out all these animals, all cute. Well, I had been staring at it for so long, and all these animals in the water right below me, that I fell in. I just fell in head first. Next thing I know, the water's in my... And that tide pool was at least this high. It was feet above my head. It was horrible. And there was water splashing all over the place, and there were animals grabbing my fingers, and I was thinking of all the animals that were in this fucking tide pool. Oh, sorry, but we're in this tide pool, and my feet are gonna get gotten, and my flip-flops had fallen off, so I'm holding my feet above the water, and then I'm drowning, there's all this water going in my face. I'm struggling for life. Nobody is helping me. Nobody at all. Nobody has dove in to save me from this whirlpool of death, this tide pool. And the next thing I know, I hear my wife screaming, "Jess! Stand up!" Now, from what I remember, I may have just stood up, maybe, but it was really deep, and I remember having to crawl myself out of a cave, to be safe again, and out of the water, and out of with all these creatures she had pointed out to me. And I got out of the water, and I'm soaking wet, and there's this guy standing there, I guess he'd watched everything. And he didn't offer any help either, thank you for saving me, sir. But he didn't. He more had a confused look on his face. So, we find out that since I was freaking out, I was grabbing onto the walls, and then those little orchids, those little purple things with all the little spikes on it some people eat, were poking me in between my nails. So I actually had little spines in my fingers, so I thought animals were biting me, but I was just freaking out and grabbing in panic mode. So I had to poke those out and being soaking wet in the ocean, which is cold, and surviving a near-death experience that nobody helped me in, except for my wife screaming for me to stand up, which it didn't. I crawled out of the great abyss, luckily, I'm so good at escaping dangerous things. And we make it to the car, and of course I'm furious, and I'm like, what? Why didn't you help me? My wife, who is always very calm, and she's just calm. She's just more relaxed than I am. Babe, all you had to do was stand up, and I didn't know what was going on and why you were freaking out and why there was all these waves in the little tiny pond. First of all, that was not a pond. That was the deepest whirlpool ever. No, that was a tide pool, and it was very shallow, and all you had to do was stand up. It was about to your knees, Jess. It wasn't to my knees. It was like up here. bottom. Yeah, I wasn't even touching the floor, babe. You weren't touching the floor because your feet were straight up in the air and your arms were flailing. Your butt was probably on the floor. So obviously she didn't understand. And once I finally calmed down and got some warm clothes on, because I have learned to always carry sweats with me and dry clothing because I'm horrible at walking, and every time we go to the ocean, somehow I end up in water. So my wife starts talking to me, and I said, well, what happened to that guy? What did that guy do that was just standing there doing a whole lot of nothing? And my wife told me that he turned and said, do we help her? Which I'm pretty sure was made up, because he wouldn't even know that that was a her unless I was screaming, and I don't remember screaming at all. Because I was, in fact, drowning in water in the great abyss. So, you know, thank goodness that I survived. The end.